did I stay true to these personality traits that I've already established? Are there maybe more ambiguous traits that I would like to come out in this scene? And ultimately, what is the end goal? What do I want the reader to take away from this?
Hello, writers and crafters. I'm Valerie Isan,
And I'm Eric Mertz.
and this is episode 196 of the podcast. It is August 20th as we record this. Today, we are talking with guest H.R. Cole about writing spicy scenes that still feel true to you. First, we want to thank our existing patrons for believing in our work offline and here on the podcast. You can become a patron of the arts at patreon.com/Valerie Isan, IHSAN, for books, writing instruction, coaching, planning, all those fun things. And patreon.com/strange air stories for Erick's short stories and novellas in the paranormal mystery genre. So, author updates. Womp womp. I got a no-go on a workshop I pitched, so that's
From
lame.
who?
Oh,
I don't want to
From who?
say
Who
on.
was
I
it?
don't want to. I don't want to say
Okay.
online. Like,
We'll just say upstate state said no. Okay. Bummer.
so that's all right.
I'm sorry.
I'm still speaking at a conference, and I thought I'm really feeling like not collaborating. Maybe that's not the right word, but I feel like I'm sort of been out of the networking loop for the past like 18 months. The last couple of years have been wildly weird, as you know.
yes.
So yeah, I think maybe I just kind of dropped the ball on staying connected to the writing communities and stuff. I'm still speaking at conferences, but like that's all I seem to do, like dip in, speak, dip back out. And I think that has hurt me over the course of this. So I want to like get my networking hat back on and start showing up, being involved and going to more things. So that is, I guess, my author update. Also, I hung out with ChatGPT for a little while the other day and came up with this amazing program for, we're moving to Costa Rica very soon. So I've always wanted to write a memoir about that time. And I've never preemptively written a memoir. Like I've always
hmm
known
hmm
Preemptive memoir. That's good. Right there.
It's
That's
a
the
new
title,
genre, new
right? I
genre.
preemptive
wrote this
memoir
before it happened. Yeah.
because usually, I mean, memoir is very retrospective, and you
Right.
after you've had the events happen and you've learned from them and you've processed them, you think, oh, and the memoir is like about learning those lessons or something. And yes, you write it as if it were happening kind of right then, and you can use old journals and memory and whatever. But this, I have always known I would like not write it in real time, but I've
Right.
known I was going to write a book about moving to another country because that is something that other people desperately want to know more about, and when you're
hmm
looking for firsthand accounts of this happening, it's usually, 7 years in the past or something. There's no up-to-date stuff, really.
Right.
So I've known that I was going to write this, but it feels weird to be writing a memoir in real time. Like that doesn't have the same like writing style that I've had for the other two memoirs. So that's a little bit weird, but so I have this whole idea then of how to write it in stages. Like right now it's all about why are we moving, the planning and the prepping and that kind of stuff and documenting that. And then the epic road trip because we're gonna drive there, which I don't know, like Ali's really excited about it, but I'm kind of like, what the fuck? That sounds really scary, but the only thing that's like reminding me is like I mean, I dig road trips, but sometimes I don't take a lot of road trips with dogs.
Ah, hmm
So that is an element that I'm not quite like sure about. And on top of that, like, of course, I've never done it in another country before. So my like saving grace or whatever is that we'll be traveling through the States for quite a while. And by then,
Get the kinks out.
we'll have the kinks out. We'll have our routines. Things will be smoother. I'll be knowing what to expect, that sort of thing. And so I think I'll be fine once we cross the border into Mexico. I think I'll be okay. But still, so I'm buying maps and we're thinking about our route and who are we going to stop and stay with along the way. And so that's kind of, I'm contacting shipping companies. It's a lot less straightforward than I thought when you try to get a quote from a shipping company because like I've had
Oh yeah.
virtual meetings now and shown them my house with my camera and like we're taking this. I'm like, when you get a U-Haul and they tell you like if you just said
Bring
I'm
it back.
moving a three, yeah. If
Yeah,
I'm
right.
telling all you gotta do is tell them like 3 bedroom, 1 bath house or something like
Hmm.
that. And they're like, okay, you need this size truck. That's all I want to know. Like, I'm
No,
gonna
that's not
be
gonna
moving
happen.
about this much stuff. How big of a container? What is the cost? Like I know it kind of goes by volume, but I mean, I don't know. Just seems a
Yeah.
lot less straightforward than I thought it was going to be. So I still haven't even gotten one quote yet, and I've got like 3 people that I'm sort of like circling around. So still waiting on that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my author update. Not very authory, but still kind of. I'm
It's
collecting
very
data.
exciting, though. Very exciting. What a trip.
I think
Wow.
you're
How
right.
long of a drive is that
Oh,
going to be on your road trip?
I think Google says it will only take like, 5 days, but
Oh, that's all. Okay. All
but
right.
really
Well,
what does Google know?
I've slotted 3 weeks for the trip
mhm.
because we are going to stay. We have a friend in Mexico, so we'll stay with him for probably 4 days. I mean, there's going to be places along the way where we're going to want to like stay overnight a couple nights because wow, why
Right.
wouldn't we? This is like a bucket list place or, something like that. So we're going to take our time getting over there. And also, our nod to safety is to always be checked into our hotel before it gets dark. So
Mhm.
we're not going to
Mhm.
be driving a lot of hours a day. Plus, with 3 dogs, 2 of them elderly, like, I mean, the whole reason we're doing this is so that we're not stressing out the dogs too much. So they are going to need toddler breaks, let's get out of the car and
Mhm.
pee and move around and so yeah, the dogs will keep us slow and I won't be able to tune out and just drive. 'Cause when I was in
Mhm.
my 20s, I used to drive from Oregon to Montana all the time. It was a 13-hour drive and I could just 13 hours driving. Done. There was, you
Yeah.
had to stop in this place and this place and this place to get gas. And that's where you could like fill up the road snack bin and
Right.
pee, wash the windshield and change the CDs, get new
Mhm.
CDs out of the
Mhm.
back and get back in the car. Not like that now. It's going
That's
to
a
be a
different time.
long, slow trip. So, anyway, but Ali was because I was worried actually about like, I mean, I'm 51. It's going to be I'll be sore sitting that long and, it's going to be hard on my body too. And just the stress of,
Mhm.
Oh
of
yeah.
being on all the time like that. So I was talking about like just the logistics of that. Like, let's be realistic. This isn't going to be I mean, it's going to be fun and epic and amazing and awesome writing fodder and, memories for the lifetime. But also, reality is this might be a little hard a couple times. So he suggested that anytime we're in a place where we're staying more than just the one night over, that we find the local like spa and go get
Mm.
massages and just kind of treat ourselves like nice, a little get a manicure or something like that.
Sure,
And I'm
absolutely.
like, yeah, that sounds great. So I'm
Great
all
idea.
aboard for that. Yeah, I'm up on board for that. What about you guys? What's your author update? What are you doing?
Well, I got rejected from a conference too. I'll just say it. I don't
Mm.
mind saying Liberty State Writing Conference in New Jersey said no, so that's fine. Um, Yeah. I mean, this is just a big, this is like the brink of busy time as far as a ghostwriter goes. All of those people who shop all summer and dream about writing something usually put that into play in September and October. So it's just been a lot of like, I
Gearing
don't know,
up
I'm just getting,
for. Hmm.
yeah, I've like retained a lawyer to redo all the subcontractor agreements and,
Oh, nice.
referral agreements that I have. And I'm trying to, I kind of go through this purge of, I get clients that start a job and then they kind of, they like lose steam, they lose interest. It happens in probably 50% of the people that pay me end up not finishing the job, which always makes me like, it boggles me, right? Like, why would you pay someone to start something and not finish it? So I usually go through a purge of people at this time of year where it's like, hey, if we're not getting back together, let's just close this off. And which can be kind of, it can be perilous, it can be, I don't know what the word I'm thinking of is. It can be a bit of a risk doing that because sometimes you'll say, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in 6 months. I guess we're done, right?" And then the person comes flying back at you like, "Oh, I want to finish this," and you're like, "Oh, I was ready to break up." But now you have this. But I was ready to break up, and now you got this cool dog, and I guess we have to go for a walk together. It's like you're just rekindled this thing when you could have let it go. So
So
on the
maybe the
business side,
tip
yeah.
is to check in with them before you want to break up with them.
Oh, I'm never gonna
He
get with
doeslike
that.
that
That's
idea.
a whole different like preemptive. Like I may be ready to break up with you, so I'm just gonna break up with you. It's like now all of a sudden I'm in like a rom-com. I don't want that. So yeah, this is it, I do have 3 or 4 people I'm ready to purge from the roles and get ready for the new year. And then creatively, like I've got a lot of little projects and short stories, and I've been tinkering with a script that I want to get out there, trying to get that done. So yeah, this summer has been, like I said, when I went into the summer and went on hiatus from this, I was like, I'm not going to have a lot of expectations for big projects. It's going to be, finishing off little things and finding new roads, and we're coming to the close of that. So, and it's been successful and satisfying, but I am ready for the fall. I'm ready for new. So
Hmm.
that's me.
What about you, Hope?
But kind of the same. I'm also ready for the fall. Summer's a bit of a whirlwind here, and you do your best to write when you can, but that's kind of what the schedule looks like, right? It's like what 2 hours and where are they do I have to sit down and work on my projects? But fall things calm down a little bit and the rest of life, projects and hobbies and family obligations, all that kind of settles in the winter up here in the Northeast. And so for me, book two in my trilogy is actually complete.
Ooh,
So I'm going through and just doing all those fun developmental edits and, the things that never end that
yeah.
you at some point have to look and just say, okay, maybe this is done. But then it never, in your mind, it never is as an author. Even when it's like in your hand published, you're looking at it like, oh, I could have done this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so
Time to add a
just
subplot.
yeah, right. Just scribble it in somewhere. But
Right, right.
so for me, winter will be mostly starting to flesh out book number three and excuse me, and then also just focusing on my health journalism writing, which usually does pick up in the winter a little bit.
What are you reading, Hope?
I'm actually not reading anything right now. Yes, I know. I find it very difficult to read a new book, and when I'm like deep into developmental edits on my own, I kind of like in those quiet moments when you're laying in bed at night, like the story I want running through my head is my own, so that
Mm.
I'm, reassessing it. Um, but I do have a long list, a long TBR that I'll eventually get to, but people just keep adding to it. I have,
Yeah.
friends will say, hey, you've got to, The Night and the Moth, you've got to get that on your list. And, or I still, there's just so many. And I tend to gravitate towards older books too. I actually love to reread books that I've already read.
Hmm.
So for me to start a book that's totally new to me, it's more unlikely than me just picking up a comfort book that I know and love.
What was one of the last books that you reread, or what was like the most reread book for you?
So it's one in the same. It is a book called Into Thin Air by John
Oh,
Krakauer.
yeah.
And it
It's a
is
great book.
just, yes, oh my gosh, it is just a phenomenal recount of his experience during, I think it was the 1983 Mount Everest disaster, a really bizarre culmination of two storm systems that came and hit the mountain at the same time and just unfortunately took a lot of lives. But he was
Mm,
there in one of the expeditions and he, came back and wrote his account down. And it's just a really immersive and I just phenomenal writing. I'm a big fan of his writing style.
cool.
My wife always talks about when I read that and Under the Banner of Heaven back to back. And there's the scene of she's in bed reading or whatever, and I'm reading, and I keep doing the like I keep like responding
Uh-huh.
to it. She still tells people about it. She's like, "Yeah, there was this one book he was. What was that book you were reading?" Yeah, he has that breathless way of like it's
Oh,
just crisp and so like
hmm.
in the scene. Yeah, love it.
And I do love a good narrative nonfiction book.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, me too.
I am, I was reading Creative Act and Anne Abel's new book, High Hopes, about the tour, the Australian tour of the Bruce Springsteen concerts. And I'm totally into that book, but had a library book jump the stack, so I had to like hurry up. And I'm in the middle of reading The Let Them Theory by Mel
Hmm.
Robbins. I don't know, it's a self-help book. It's the
Hmm.
life-changing tool that millions of people can't stop talking about, is the
You
subtitle.
read that off the
And what
cuff.
is
Okay, I
it?
was
What
gonna
is
say
it?
you didn't just wing that.
No,
That's
no, no, that
crazy.
was the that's the subtitle from the book. So she's a famous podcaster, and I only apparently she's got loads of books, and she's been a public speaker for many, 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 many years, like all over the world. And I'd never like heard of her. I had a life coach friend recommend her podcast, so I started listening to her podcast a couple years ago. Really, just sort of. I don't listen to it every week, but she's got some pretty amazing episodes. So I just kind of dip in and listen to her every once in a while. And this book at the bookstore, people kept asking for it, so I put it in our stock for a little while, and then I had put it on my library holds list and forgot all about it, and so it popped up just last week, and I thought, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm reading this book now. Okay,
What
so
am I
let's see.
reading? I'm reading. I just finished. It's funny, Spicy Scenes. I just read "Devil in a Blue Dress" by Walter Mosley, which is book one in the Easy Rollins mystery series. And there's a spicy scene in there. I can't wait to have this conversation and kind of
Oh
compare
boy.
it to compare it to the last like conventionally published scene of that ilk. But I'm currently reading something Happen Leonard. It's just
Mhm.
a crime. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen the books around. They're fun. Joe
They used to
Lansdale.
have
They're
the TV show too. They did the first like four books, I think, in
yeah.
a TV show.
Yeah, I grabbed it because it looked cool off the shelf and thought, all right, you get one of these short stories. And yeah, it turns out I read them all. I'm gonna read them all. So they're good.
Which Hap and Leonard book are you reading?
It's just called Happen Leonard. It feels like a book that came out as a promotion
Okay.
around the series because there's a lot of like promotional pictures inset in there, and there's probably
Oh, okay.
seven stories. Like it's like three novellas and four short stories. It's just a nice like, and Joe Lansdale writes in such a interesting style. Like some of it is very hard boiled, which I like, and then so he has one story that's very sort of speculative and poetic. It's sort of like a maybe like an Ursula Le Guin story or Octavia Butler, kind of that. So he has like a really wide range. So it's not like you're reading the same story in
Hmm.
a different costume every time. You're getting this like, oh wow, this one's like the Invisible Boy was the story that like really got me hooked in because it was just really sort of dark and poetic. So yeah, it's a good book.
Cool. All right, well, let's get into the meat of the
Let's do
episode.
it.
Yeah, let's read Hope's bio first. H.R. Cole is a Pennsylvania native who completed her first handwritten fantasy novel at the age of 12. She's remained an avid writer and has one published middle grade novel and a successful health journalism career. Cole lives with her husband, dogs, and cats in mountainous upstate New York. Welcome to the podcast, Hope.
Thank you so much for having
Hi.
me.
So, of the list of topics that you are speaking on these days, one stood out, I thought, for our audience. So, this is From Reserved to Ravishing. Nice title. Writing spicy scenes that still feel true to you. So, I thought this would be super interesting because in all stories, no matter the genre, you're going to have relationships that happen. Even, like, I mean, I guess not all of them are going to be romance. So not all of them would require a spicy or unspicy scene, but they're all about relationships to some degree. So being able to write those scenes in a way that doesn't feel well, I really like the way you titled it, just not true to you. Like how are you able to write a spicy scene, a sex scene without being so uncomfortable you don't want to write it yourself? You know what I mean?
I
And
do.
and
I do. I know exactly what you mean.
and some are, I mean, the easy answer would be don't put it in your book then. But like if you're writing in a genre where that is an obligatory scene, or the client, not the reader expectation is that it would be in there in some way. How do you go about doing it? I mean, that's a big
Well,
question, but I
right,
guess
right.
like I guess as a planner, are you first of all, are you a plotter or a planner? Or I
I
mean a writer. I'm both. You're either a
yes.
plotter or a planner.
I'm a big outliner,
Okay.
so even the spicy scenes,
I was just gonna ask that. Like, do you
yes,
plan
yes,
ahead? Like, all right, I'm gonna
yes.
have to have that scene right there. Okay.
Yes. So the scene itself is also, for me, this is just my process, is also very intricately plotted out. Um, Something that when I decided that I was going to include spicy scenes in my writing, kind of a non-negotiable for me was that I wanted them to contribute to the book, the story in some way. I didn't just want this filler of intimacy that could be easily skipped over and nobody would miss it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me it was really important to use it in some kind of constructive way. So I do it to showcase character traits that perhaps aren't as obvious in the main characters or the love interests until that moment. You can learn a lot about somebody during their intimate times. So excuse me. So it that is a big part of my process is what do I want to come across during this scene? And in my current book, Daughter of the Void, it is mainly showcasing my main male character's caring and softer side because he's kind of one of those like strong silent types and you don't get too much from
Mm-hmm.
him, like no, not that many verbal confirmations throughout the book. I really want people to pay attention to his actions. And so he really shines in the spicy scene because I actually had one reader message me and she said it was the most giving love scene that she'd ever read.
Aw,
And that was my
No.
goal. I really wanted that. That was hands down exactly what I wanted people to take away from it.
that's awesome. So then if a writer wants to s- write their first spicy scene ever, you said that I mean, do you choreograph the scene? Like you said, you plot out the scene. What do you mean exactly by that then?
Basically have a goal. What do I want it to accomplish? And if it's character development, what character traits do I want it to show? And then you have to kind of backtrack from your goal and plot down. What are, so if I want to showcase kindness and giving, what are the things in a partner that do that? And then, you make a list and then you can incorporate them into the scene at your comfort level, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and it's also important to be true to your characters. If you've developed a character that's really bold and sassy and, you know, you have to write the scene in a way that is realistic for the character that you've developed. So now you come into language choices. And that's another part of the planning system is, I make a list of words that I feel are appropriate or not appropriate, um,
For the character?
for the character and the scene itself. So, if you're writing a scene that's between two fairly, innocent, naive characters, I make my writing a little more whimsical and poetic than, if you've got experienced characters who, know what they want and are going after it. So I didn't
It's
quite
like
mean
when
it
I
like
took
that,
screen,
but we'll take it like
it
that, I
brings
guess.
me right back to screenwriting, though. When I took screenwriting classes, one of the classes you take is like I took was it's basically like fight scenes and love scenes because there's this like even a fight scene in a movie is supposed to show, this is it's a power dynamic or it's a it's whatever. But yeah, like they talked a lot about just like don't just fade in and out of a love scene. Make sure that that love scene has, intent and purpose and character involved. So yeah, those are the ones that stick with you. Those are the ones you
Right,
remember.
absolutely. And I find that in my own reading, if I encounter, a sex scene, sometimes if it's not relevant to the story, I'm almost inclined to just gloss by it. And I didn't want that in my own writing. So,
Yeah. Yeah, when I read that Devil in the Blue Dress, like I thought it was a really well done scene because it's a noir plot of a character. He's out looking for this woman that his client is seeking out, and then they have this little torrid love affair. But it was such a well done scene because like he clearly knew this was crossing the line, very noir detective style. I'm crossing the line. My client wants me to bring her back, but I can't resist her. So it's this like it kind of shows his like the conflict between his sense of duty and desire. And it was, I couldn't put it down. And it went on for pages.
mhm.
And it never felt like it was overwritten. It never felt like it went on too long. It just felt like it was just an extension of the other elements of the story that made him a great character from page one.
Right. It humanizes them, because
Yeah.
we all have
Yeah.
such dimensions to our personality that, it's nice to see those glimpses. Like he's warring with these two sides of himself, and that's very relatable. And I think, that's what
Yeah.
resonates with people.
Do you read romance?
Um, so by definition, yes, but
Okay.
um, this is an interesting, this is kind of an interesting like tangent to go off on. So the genre of romantasy, which is kind of an umbrella term for any kind of fantasy that has a strong, primary romance plot to it as well.
Right.
It covers such a broad range of things, right? So you can have romantic fantasy where the fantasy story can stand alone and the romance is still central to the plot. But then you can have fantasy romance where it's the romance that is central to the plot and it just kind of happens in the fantasy world. So my personal reading tends to fall on the romantic fantasy end of the spectrum. I really loved Glenna McReynolds is one of my favorite writers. She has a series, The Chalice and the Blade, and it's just you're so in love with the world and the world building. Um, in the romance, when you finally get to, she only really writes one spicy scene in any of her books. When you finally get there, it's just you're just such a part of that world and that experience that um, you know, again, the scene adds to the story. It's really this just culmination of these people expressing, the love of this long journey has brought us to. So that's kind of where I fall as a reader. I guess that would be probably the lower end of the spice spectrum. Um, So I'm not as much of a reader of the romance books where every other chapter is a spice scene, but that's because personally I just love world building and I want the
Right.
adventure.
Hmm.
Right.
So I'm taking notes over here. I just want to make sure that I'm writing this down correctly and not just the opposite of what you said. So you said there's romantic fantasy where that's more like a fantasy novel with a romantic element versus like a fantastical romance, which is just a romance novel set in a fantasy world. Did I
Right.
write
Right,
that down
right.
correctly? Okay.
Yep.
But it
And
still
there's
goes under the umbrella of romantasy.
right. And it's a plus and a minus when it comes to genre readers because it's hard to know what you're going to get.
Hmm.
Right. Which
Books that
genre
are
is it?
right are marketed as romantasy. It and especially if people are sensitive to the spice level that they're getting into. Not everybody wants open door spice, and if they do, they might not want 60% of the novel to be that. But unfortunately, because there's not a better defining line in the romantasy genre, it can be difficult for the reader to understand what they're getting into.
And also, I would imagine, like, if one of the determining factors if a book is a romance or not is that HEA, in some
Right,
romantasy novels, that's not the case. So
right.
that doesn't make it a romance. So if that's what you want and that's your expectation as a reader, then yeah, you would be irritated, I think.
Yes, I agree. And that is a criticism of using that term so freely, but unfortunately it's a big marketing
It's
term.
so
Hmm.
huge.
Yes.
Hmm.
It's so huge. What do you feel? I read a lot of sites with that are book marketing sites. Put your book in this promo, and there's always in that promo description, there's always this some disclaimer about romance, heat level, spice level, and it feels like this. It feels like writer awareness of like where they fit in the kind of like heat level, like spicy scene level, like is I don't know. It feels like it's a struggle for a lot of writers to understand that. Do you think it's clear? Like, do you think there's clearly drawn lines in the genres for like my book is every other chapter, or like do you? I'm not even really. I feel like I'm not even answering a question, but
And
like,
I know it. I
I just feel
know.
like it's such a
Yeah.
struggle to know where you fit.
You don't.
Um,
Yeah, you have no idea, honestly. Because not only is there no industry standard, but even amongst more popular, say, book influencers who put their own ratings out there, what I consider to be, low spice versus high spice, it's all different. It's all different. So, yes, it's pretty much impossible to know because where you fall on one, scale for one reader could be very different from where you fall on
right,
another scale.
right.
It's all
Which was
subjective.
makes those
Yes.
those clean Christian romances so appealing because you know exactly where you
That's
fit in,
right.
right?
That's right.
Right? She's got an ankle length skirt on, and that's it. We know that's enough.
That's
Well, and
right.
they
That's
had
enough
a
for the
whole
hero to
thing
blush.
like if you didn't want a Christian romance, you could get the sweet romances, and that would indicate
Oh,
like
right, sweet. That's it.
closed door
Right.
stuff.
Is that the industry term? Is like one of them
A
closed
sweet
door
romance,
romance?
or
Yeah.
yeah, or a sweet
Oh,
romance. Hmm.
I'm
Closed
gonna
door,
use
open
that.
door,
I'm gonna
sweet
use that.
romance.
Yeah, so many terms. And then I wonder like because it is just a marketing term, that's all marketing. So if we as
Yeah.
authors know these marketing terms, like do the customers actually know that? Like that's I think
How
where
well?
maybe the breakdown is.
Right. Right.
And we talk about around this topic all the time. It's like there's marketing terms which are one thing, but then there's also like reader awareness terms. Like I would wish there was something where like a reader's guide to like what do I really want, so they
Hmm.
know what they're looking for, so they don't because you don't want that sale even if you sell the book to that person if it's not what they want. That's a bad review. That's not a repeat reader. So there's I don't know. I wish there was an alignment there because yeah, it just makes for unhappy on
Maybe
both
that can
sides.
be a librarian job because when you go in the library and they have those little bookmarks and it would say like
Yes,
if you
right.
liked Harry Potter, you'll love all these series and they just have all these giant, for kids when they're looking for a book like I don't know.
The
When I
Oregon City Library has those for adults too, where they have you get
yeah.
They're
a
very
little
helpful.
trifold and it tells you if you yeah,
So there you
just saying.
go. If you like if you like lots of sex scenes in your book, look for terms that say spicy or
Right.
heated or
Or
open
look in the
door.
banned book section, you know.
So,
Unfortunately.
so I want to know actually, like, what makes a good sex scene? Like, you talked, Eric, about like not feeling like it goes on too long. It just seemed appropriate. You talked about humanizing characters and like using it as a character development scene. But like every scene needs to do that. Like, those are all, everything that you just said was true of any scene. So, what does make a good sex scene? Because I've also heard that some people, I knew an author, she didn't like sex scenes at all. She said they were boring. They always used weird words for stuff. And like and some are very choreographed, I guess is a good word. Like there's a lot of explicit movement happening, and
Hmm.
others don't even mention it, but you can tell it's an intimate moment and it's not closed door because you're there the whole time. But like what makes a good sex scene?
I think that's a very personal opinion based
True, I
question.
guess
So,
so.
because some readers for sure read because they want to come out of a sex scene hot and bothered. They don't necessarily care if you built any character development into it.
Right. Right.
For me personally, I think it walks the middle line of what you just described, where you're there in the moment, so you're going to have descriptive details, but they're not hard and jarring like words that take you out of the moment and just kind of shock you. That's for me what interrupts your flow as a reader. So a nice smooth writing. I personally like poetic writing. I like you know clever word usage versus just very blunt descriptive language. So, and I think that it should feel natural. Most of the readers have had their own experiences, and I think that it should align with the natural course of human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I pick up romance, I'll see them in a promo or I'll see them how did this book have 25,000 reviews? Let me read this thing. But I find sometimes that I know a good spy scene when I don't when when I find myself I'm in it, I'm in that scene and I didn't feel the sort of speed bump that took me
Mm-hmm.
into that scene, right? There was one, my wife has a client that writes romance and I read one of these books and you could just tell it was like they're at a baseball game flirting and then all of a sudden they're like in the bedroom and it's like the prose was different. There was I knew where the writer wanted me to be, and that took me out of the story immediately because it just I wasn't there as a reader with the character. So I think that's you can kind of tell when it it's an articulate part of the story.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So what you're saying is just be a good writer.
um,
Like it doesn't really matter. Basically, it doesn't matter.
Well,
What matters is what you as the writer are comfortable writing and just being true to the characters and not having transition. Like it just sounds like be a good writer.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's fair to say follow the golden rules of writing, as you would for any other scene. And, keep it natural, keep your language smooth, and stay consistent with your voice. Because if you've written a very, poetic smooth, flowy language book, and then suddenly we come to a spice scene, and the language is jarring and abrupt and very blunt. It's not consistent with your voice throughout the rest of the book, and I think that sometimes writers feel that they need to change it up in that scene because it's such an intense emotional scene, and we're always taught like in action scenes use short sentences,
Hmm.
to kind of, in the moment, this happens, boom, boom, boom. But it's not, even in an action scene, there's a continuum of your voice throughout it. And for whatever reason, I feel like spice scenes, maybe just because it can be an uncomfortable topic for people to write about, I see it that sometimes they totally change their writing voice around.
Right.
I went
I
to,
mean, I
this
think
is
it's
not, this doesn't have to do with romance, but I just want to put this little snippet in here. I went to a conference once and was getting a book signed by C.C. Humphreys, who's a horror author. And I really wanted to buy this book. I'd heard him speak. He was very lovely, funny. I wanted to support this, local, not local, but I wanted to support this, artist. So I wanted to buy the book, but I asked him, I waited in line and I got to the, front of the line and was like, I I'm afraid of like horror. Like I don't read horror. I don't like, am I going to be okay reading this book? Is it going to be like just a couple scenes of like gore and that I can gloss over? And like
Hmm.
basically, is it stuff full? So it was kind of the same question of, is this a spicy book or is this a,
Sure,
and he
right.
was like, no, 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 there's just one scene. And he said he wrote the whole book, saved that for last, closed his eyes, wrote it really fast, snuck it in. So I wonder if sometimes, in fact, I know that as an editor, I know that my clients sometimes will write those tough scenes last.
Right,
So if you're
right.
concerned about transitions, using the same word choice, the same like maybe just like bite the bullet and write it as you
Yes, yes,
just let it be part of your natural writing process. If
right.
you
And
do jump around when you write, then okay, that's fine. Save it for
e-
whenever you're comfortable for it. But
well, I was just, I think too, like there's the going back to that devil in a blue dress, like I just felt like that when the author wrote that scene, he was like it was such a natural character expression that I felt like he was never out of the mode of writing the character. He wrote the character the same way as if he was, I mean, the character holds up a liquor store, does a lot of things during the book, and it just felt like he was writing scenes involving his character, and this just so happened to be the sex scene, or this just so happened to be and it all felt, I think sometimes you can get really, I mean, that might work for some, but I think for some that anticipation might or that like, oh, I've written this character. Now I have to write them in a spicy scene, and that's different. Like it maybe shouldn't feel different to
yeah.
write that.
yeah, no, we go through the process of character development for a reason. And I would definitely recommend, if a writer has not taken the time, even in a separate document, to develop their character, their traits. Some people go down to the depth of their favorite food, what's their favorite color.
Yeah, yeah,
But you have to explore, you have to know your character, because that's where it pays off, is when you get to these scenes, whether it's a love scene or a fight scene or any challenging scene, especially in fantasy, right? We're taking this epic journey and there's almost always hardships of some kind. You have to be able to know how your character is going to react to a given situation. And you only really do that if you have a pre-developed character. You have to know,
right.
even if the story's about their development, you have to have the final endpoint and their inherent traits, because even if there's character growth, those inherent traits, can stay true throughout the story.
Amen. I agree.
Hmm. Man, that just doesn't fit with my like checklist mentality. I'm like, I want to know the order of
You and your
operation when
checklist.
you sit down and write. So I guess you could do that with any um, scene checklist, like if you bookend it the right way and you've got all the elements of scene in it and just yeah. I like things to be easy and sometimes writing just isn't easy. And I try
No.
to make it easy by creating all these lists and plotting out and outlining. This is the sex scene. Okay. Well,
Yes, I mean, but all that applies too. I have a dual screen on my laptop, and one screen is literally just it's just lists of words and character traits, and so even if you're, as the internet calls, a pantser, right? The
Mhm.
fly by the seat of your pants.
Discovery writer, they call him
Right,
now.
right.
Oh
Probably the
boy.
nicer word, I
So
guess.
much more gentle.
And I was guilty of that too. So, but you at least have something that you can look to remind you, okay, well, I've created this character to be this way, and I need to make sure that that's still coming out in this scene. So if you
Hmm.
if you plot the points of the scene as far as what's actually happening, you just consider it like a mini version of your entire draft. You're drafting the
Mm.
sex scene, you hit your main points, and then you go back and you fill in, and you just want to do a double check. Did I stay true to these personality traits that I've already established? Are there maybe more ambiguous traits that I would like to come out in this scene? And ultimately, what is the end goal? What do I want the reader to take away from this?
Okay.
And I think that's like as something new can come out about a character during a scene like this. I mean,
Sure.
we might, if you see a character, you know, uh, in their normal life and they're one person, like I think it's a perfectly great place to discover. It's an important part of life. It's a revealing part of life. So they don't have to be as, um, yeah, yeah. I think that could be a really fun way to learn something about a character.
Absolutely. And it's a nice way to set up the psychology of your character too. So, even if you have a really outwardly confident, bold character, but you've established that they have a tragic backstory, you know, scenes where they're vulnerable, which are going to be intimate scenes, you can delve into their deeper psychology a little bit. So it's a great way, like you said, a surprise trait comes out, but when you look back, maybe it's not quite as surprising as you thought
Right,
because we know
right.
this
Something you
character,
foreshadowed.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I mean, Walter Mosley's going to owe me some royalties because I keep talking about this book, but
Well, you just
that
finished the
was one of the
book.
great that was one of the great moments in that scene was like it like she was such a conflict for him that it brought him back to, something in his past that we had been, kind of hinting at throughout the book that had been foreshadowed and then here it, emerges and I thought like what a great place to put that like because it is a vulnerable place to be no matter what and yeah. Yeah. Walter, you owe me royalties. So
What about
10% of what you sell.
flashbacks in a scene? I mean, that's hard to do in any scene, but in a sex scene, like, would you?
I think you'd have to be careful that you don't do too much all at once, that you don't pull the reader out of the
Yeah,
moment. But
same.
you could do, I think a sentence of thought here or there, or, something like that could certainly build the atmosphere and maybe also convey their emotions a little bit clearly if they're hesitant or if they have a moment of doubt. Um, so yeah, definitely. Honestly, anything is doable. I'm a firm believer that with words and language, you can, in your scenes, you can
Mm,
just be so creative and the possibilities are endless. And that I think is one of the fun things about spicy scenes is because they're so uncomfortable for many writers, you know what? Be creative, like have fun with it and see it as a challenge. If you love writing, you need to do things that you haven't done before within writing. It's how we learn and grow. It's just like if you're a mountain climber, we talked about that book, you get the next thrill from climbing a new mountain or reaching a summit you've never been to. So push yourselves, as writers. If it's just a comfort thing and it's not, something that is triggering for you, or you have deeper reasons why you don't want to do it, if it's literally just you're unfamiliar with it, then play around with it. Even if it's not within your, work in progress, play around with it in a short story, or just, have a document that's just one of those scenes. It's okay. It's okay to play around and try different languages and, language models and Maybe you like the blunt, short sentences. Maybe you like the emotions that those, draw out of readers, or maybe you like a little bit more of a poetic approach. I think people should explore it.
Have you rewritten sex scenes that didn't quite seem right the first time round?
Yes. So I think I'm guilty of this in lots of scenes, particularly high action scenes where you have it in your head. It's like you're watching a movie in your head.
Hmm.
And as a writer, when you put it down, it makes sense to you because you're seeing it play through as you're writing it. But if you ask someone else to read it, they're missing big chunks, right? That you got to see in your head and they don't get to see. So oftentimes with a first go at a spicy scene, to me it's this beautiful, well thought out, thing, and then my editor will be like, well, this was really quick. I'm like, oh, okay, good point.
So that leads me to a nice segue from getting feedback on spicy scenes. Like if you're in a writing group and you're bringing pages every week to your writers group, like that is a little more uncomfortable, I would think. Like, let's sit here and read out loud in this cafe, this scene. Like, any tips on getting feedback for spicier scenes? Or
I would
asking someone to like, are you comfortable with this? Or, I mean, how do you?
Yeah, I think that's where it starts. Just assess the comfort level of your critique partners, and um, maybe they don't mind reading out loud in the cafe. As long as everybody in the group is on board, I think that's fine. But some might prefer it to be individually sent to them, and they can read and, at their comfort of their own home. So I would definitely warn them ahead of time. I have a spicy scene that I need critiqued. If you're not comfortable, it's totally okay. And if you are interested, what's the best way for me to send it to you?
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah.
Warn ahead of time. What's the best
Hmm.
way?
Writers group Gary always does. He's got some romance, and I have a writers group partner that always comes up in conversation. And yeah, he always talks about, what he's that's part of our group culture. So I think making it part of your group culture is would be important.
Absolutely.
How do you guys do it, Eric? You said you make it part of your group culture. What is your group culture around
I
that?
mean, when we submit anything, we talk about just where our like, hey, this is one of Gary's characters has dealt with some trauma, some abuse. So he always says, hey, there's a scene in here where, we flash back on something. So it's just part of our, when we don't just dump pages on each other to read, we end up sort of preparing each other for what's coming. Hey, this is new. I'm worried about this. This is a new element. And so anything that might, just kind of raise to the level of special interest is, yeah, which is nice because you know what you're, it just as a writers group etiquette, it just brings you into like, okay, this is something new, or I need to think of it differently, or um, yeah,
So your culture, your group culture in your writing group then, is it all online? Do you like you submit it or do
yeah,
you meet together in a Zoom meeting or
we meet in a Zoom meeting on every other Wednesday, and then we submit stuff to each other the previous Thursday. Like tomorrow, I'll submit things, and then we have yeah. So then we meet and we talk about it. Everybody gets 8 minutes to talk about each person's submission, and then at the end of the session, everybody just sends in their notes because I like will do inline notes. Um, so, but yeah, it's like I think it's important to prepare your critique partners for what might be coming. It might be if it's anything
Mhm.
that might require special
Trigger
attention.
warnings?
Hmm.
Yeah, trigger
Absolutely.
warnings.
And trigger warnings for your characters too. Like as you're, you said, maybe the psychology of the characters will come out. So maybe they enter this and they're really gung ho about the idea of this scene that's about to happen. And then once they're in it, they're like, oh, wait a minute. And then they remember something that puts them in a wonky headspace and they can't continue. And that tells us a lot about the character too. And so.
Right, absolutely. They're just
Right.
such a great opportunity. The spicy scenes are just for character insight, they're really invaluable. I mean, think about what other level of vulnerability, like what other scenes do we get? Perhaps, a character death might elicit, that level of, openness. But they're just a really great opportunity for authors to delve into character development.
Absolutely.
In your books, Hope, like you've
Hmm.
got Daughter of the Void is the first book that is published right now. You said you had a middle grade one, which I'm
I
assuming has no
do.
sex
No
scene in
sex scenes. No
it.
sex scenes in that one. No.
But the middle grade one isn't on your website. Is that?
It's not, it's actually not in publication
Oh, okay.
at this time. Um, Boy, it's been probably about 15 years. And yeah, it was an interesting experience. I also went through another small publishing house for that one, and I just, I didn't know what I was doing. And, a lot of mistakes were made along the way. And I do hope to reintroduce it at some
Mhm.
point in time, but I'm going to focus on this trilogy right now.
Yeah. So then Daughter of the Void, tell us about that. Chains of Fate trilogy. What did you decide? I mean, you said you're a plotter, so you've got like the second book's already, you knew it was a trilogy, so I'm assuming, have the third book already plotted.
I do, guilty, yes. Um, so Daughter of the Voids really, the central themes of it are fate and destiny. A lot of what I write about in my health writing is psychology based, and I really wanted people to ask themselves what their personal, beliefs about fate and destiny are. And those two terms are often used interchangeably, but they're not quite the same. Destiny is a little more malleable. You can be destined for greatness, and that could mean a lot of different things. But with fate, you're like locked in. And some people believe we're fated, to certain outcomes, and then other people believe there's a little bit more wiggle room. And so the main character and Daughter of the Void is Raylan, and she has this very special power where she can kind of undo magic.
Mm,
But if she decides to embrace it and what that means in her world, she ends up going down kind of an inescapable path. And so you're following her along and you're wondering, is she's trying to get out of it, because she doesn't want that end result that everybody seems to be like, well, you're what's called a warden, you're this very special person, you're going to end up doing this thing, like you can't get away from it, it's just who you are. And she doesn't want that for herself, but it seems like no matter what path she takes, she's still being kind of steered in that direction. So you don't know until book three whether she can escape her fate or not, or if she's more or less just, on the waves of destiny, so to speak.
So would you, circling back to the spicy scenes, did you decide, how did you decide what level of spice to put in this trilogy? And how are you planning on marketing that so that people can find the right
Ah,
spice
yes.
level?
It's difficult. So the decision is I didn't write this book for market. I wrote this book for me. It is something that I would enjoy reading, which means that it's like a mashup of, older, say, Terry Brooks or Robert Jordan books, plus Patricia McKillip or the Glenna McReynolds, where the spice is on the lower end,
Hmm.
but there's still open door scenes. So because that's the kind of book that I resonate with, that's the kind of book that this is.
Hmm.
Um, and I do my best on social media and, when I come on a podcast or an interview to explain that it is what I consider a fantasy or a romantic fantasy.
Hmm.
So the fantasy story is standalone. Even if the romance wasn't there, you should enjoy Raylan's adventure and be carried along in this immersive world. So it's important for me that readers go into it because they love fantasy as much as they love the subplot of romance. Because I do think if you go into this expecting spice every other chapter, you're going to get hit with a lot of world building and probably lose interest. So I don't want that to happen. I want this book to reach people who want to read it. And so I try to explain that. I try to explain the whole romantasy genre debacle and, where the
And
the
how do you
lines
do
are.
that in
And
your book description and your marketing copy, like
it's very hard. I tried to use, the keywords of romantic fantasy versus romantasy, but at the same time, because most readers probably don't understand the intricacies of the romantasy spectrum, I do still market it as romantasy. But if you, follow me and follow my social media, I do go, I'm very open about this is got world building and this is fantasy and,
hmm
you're not just along for the relationship ride.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking with us about this, Hope. It was really eye-opening and I think gives me a lot to think about. And now I want to go write a sex scene.
Do it, do it. Everybody listening should go practice right now.
That's awesome. It's really hard to write sex scenes when you're writing them out.
Well, that's
That's
fair.
a little
Okay,
bit
that's
more
fair.
like vulnerable than
That is definitely fair. You win. You win. I don't have any advice on that one, none whatsoever.
Oh. On that note.
Oh my gosh.
Uh, thanks so much for coming on.
Yes,
And
thank
if
you both for having me.
anything you want to plug besides go by Daughter of the Moon or Daughter of the
A
Moon,
Daughter of
Daughter
the
of the
Void.
Void.
I'm sure Daughter of the Moon's a lovely book too. um, no, I will just say that um, be proud of your sex scenes,
Mm,
writers. And you know what? As a health writer, sexuality, health, and wellness is very near and dear to my heart, and it's very important for all of us. And so it's not something to be embarrassed about or be shy about. It is okay. Like it's okay to embrace it and explore it, and it's a part of your health and well-being. And I think that we should all remember that.
mm. Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank you.
so much.
And show notes, we'll have your link to your website and to your social media. So we'll make sure that everybody can head on over to Hope's Instagram and check her out.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye for
Bye
now.
bye.